here. This is the Mike Sewall who wrote did the short story collection, Wild Monsters Dace About. That I did. I read one of his letters.
Yeah.
Just recently, and one of his short stories, which I thought was a really, really good short story about how technology just steamrolls just about everybody. And I want to make an exception. Like usually we say, it's only like one question per customer.
Mm-hmm.
And the exception is going to be MJ, Mike Sewall, just reread all 300 issues, individual issues of Cerebus, all of the backup material, all the notes from the president, all of Glamour Plus, all of the introductions, and sent me a very nice 8-page letter about exactly what a mind-transforming experience this was, going back and doing all that. And as tends to happen in that case, at least until the effect wears off, those people are going to have a lot of questions about Cerebus that they want to ask, and you can't really limit them to just one. So I had already pulled out Mike's letter and underlined the questions that he had in it. It would be very nice. It would be very satisfying for my ego to read all 8 pages of the letter, but I'm not going to do that. I did want to read one of his paragraphs. I'm a big fan of Thomas Paine, he writes. Talk about a parallel. He was famous for self-publishing Common Sense and invited to all the early reindeer games, parties, conventions, dinners. He met everyone. He also got screwed over by a few printers. Then he goes to France and pens The Rights of Man and The Age of Reason, those 2 books. Then he got not just canceled, but betrayed, imprisoned, impoverished, all of it.
Mm.
He said, organized religion ain't so great, and by the way, I'm a deist. Friends abandoned him. Several even tried to get him actively executed. And he puts in parentheses, is there any other way to execute but actively? Yeah. And then he writes, The Age of Reason was the book where I said, this is how I think of God. I'm a deist. I've not heard anyone else use that word until coming across it in your commentaries. I believe in a personal connection. With God. I always found organized religion confusing. Was I missing something? My parents were at some point Baptist, Methodist, Mormon, Church of Latter-day Saints, and then my mom converted to Judaism. I've read the New Testament and the Paul sections. I loved the adventure story as he headed to Rome, a shipwreck and everything. But as he, quote, founded, unquote, Christ Church, I got more and more uneasy. Was this what Christ really wanted? So I underlined that as a question. Some things did not seem right to me. As you said, plenty of gobbledygook in Paul's letters, too. I think that's one of those, we're always going to have completely divergent viewpoints with fellow monotheists.
I would agree.
Pardon me?
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, just taking the question per se, was this what Christ really wanted? I would say my impression of Christ is an obedient servant of God. He did that, proved his bona fides through his younger years that, yes, this is the only priority in his life, and then became an appropriate vehicle for Scripture, for channeling these stories and being told, when you're, okay, you were just asked this question, say this, and probably didn't know the full implications of what he was saying, but whoever it is that was telling him to say that was either God or was delegated to the task by God. There's no way to resolve that with virtually any Christian church, which I respect. I'm not saying that's the case. That's exactly what reality is. It's like, no, that's my impression. That's my overall impression. Trying to give equal weight to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Wouldn't surprise me if I'm completely wrong. I think the most important thing is for people to admit that everybody's in that case.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that Mike mentions in his letter. People who, capital K, know this. No, you don't know that. That's your opinion. And
yeah.
You can make a case for it, and if you want to be persuasive and you're part of the Baptist persuasion or the Catholic persuasion, I think we always want to welcome persuasive arguments. But telling somebody, no, you're wrong and I'm right, that's, to me, trying to take God's place. I'm omniscient, you're just a foolish mortal. And it's like, the only person who can say that, as far as I'm concerned, is God.
Yeah, it's so hard to, I'm a Christian, and so I'm a monotheist myself. It's so hard for me to, find my own reading of Scripture and how my own opinion of it without other people telling me what it is. Say, either friends who are fellow Christians who tell me, oh no, that's not what it meant, or even at times at my church. I mean, I don't really share my personal beliefs too much at church. I know that sounds kind of odd, but I don't go into too much depth. But yeah, I think it's better if monotheists really just try to be open-minded about different viewpoints and about Scripture and about God. I mean, just and you might not agree with those viewpoints or opinions. You might think they're just totally, crazy. But I think that at least people can just be open to reading that opinion and not get too disagreeable. Definitely not violently so.
Right. I mean, this is what we're seeing everywhere in our society. It's like, I don't hold my opinions that I hold to irritate you.
Yeah.
So there's no real need for you to be irritated.
Yeah.
But try to tell people that it's, you have offended me.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I think that's your problem. Being offended.
Yeah.
Try not to be that way. Like, what are you, a 2-year-old?
Right. Yeah.
You get this impression of people that they're all little Lord Fauntleroy, and you just walked across their cape. It's like, I didn't walk across your cape. I just said, oh, that's interesting. This is what I believe instead.
Right.
And, we can just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to keep talking if you want to keep talking about something. But if me disagreeing with you is going to really, really irritate you, and you don't want to be irritated, then we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Yeah. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's a legitimate way to end a discussion. I have this movie critic that I really like, and he's on Twitter all the time. But people, his own critics believe that he doesn't believe what he's writing. But it's so stupid when people make that type of argument, because he really believes what he's writing, because he's making these sincere and very rational arguments about what he sees in a movie. I think it's applicable to people talking about what they think about God and about religion. I mean, I think being more respectful and civil in discussions with people with different viewpoints, it would be more welcomed, I think.
Yeah, it's a cornerstone of civilization that you really do have to accept the fact that people arrive at different conclusions from your own through, sincere belief in what it is that they believe in. The idea of saying to somebody, you can't really believe that.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean I can't really believe that?
Yes.
I can believe whatever I want. That's one of the, to me, God's greatest gift to mankind is free will. It's like you make your own decisions, and if you want to make bad ones, that's up to you. It all comes down to Judgment Day.
Yeah.
You're not going to find out what you were right about and what you were wrong about until then. But if you apply yourself, presumably you will get better at making better decisions. And I think we also have to get the point of understanding that just because everybody agrees with something doesn't mean that that's a good opinion.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
The newspapers are full of, 62% of Americans agree. And it's like, well, what's that got to do with it? It's like at one point, 78% of people on planet Earth thought slavery was a great idea.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that it was a right idea at the time or that it's a right idea now.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that we have suddenly arrived at the point where anything that 62% of people agree on, well, that's it. The science is settled, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if it's only 62%, it's not science. Newton's laws of motion, 100% of people agree that until you get into outer space and, Einstein's theory of relativity applied, Newton's laws of motion are factual, 100%.
Yeah.
Anybody that disagrees with that doesn't understand the science. But that's science, something that people only agree 62% about. That's still just an opinion. Okay, getting to, then Mike starts talking about, then something else kept nagging at me, like he's documenting his whole experience of devouring everything. He calls me you're a Canadian zealot in the midst of comic book history. And I turn up everywhere. Then something else kept nagging at me. Wait, this guy was totally alone after a certain point. Gerhard working on his own, no secretarial help. Does that mean you did all the phone calls, all the errands, all the shipping of subscriptions and freebies, and running credit card sales for years? You did, didn't you? And it's like, well, okay, that's one of the things that I sort of touched on earlier. There did come a point where I would go, okay, the Visa and MasterCard phone thing, which was a big part of the operation for years and years, particularly when a new trade paperback would come out. Gerhard and I would alternate answering the order line and taking down the phone order. And that would take up a good chunk of the day. By the time Gerhard was working at home, and by the time service was over, phone calls and errands weren't really an issue. Shipping of subscriptions and freebies, that came to an end in 2004, so that was no longer a concern. And that came to an end just at an opportune time where it no longer became a viable thing to farm out to somebody. Pack Mail here in town used to do the subscriptions and freebies, and when they went out of business, that was it. There was no replacement for them because there was just not enough money in charging whatever it is that they charged. I think 10 cents or 15 cents for each action. If they have to put it in a plastic bag with a backing board, then they charge 10 cents for that. Put it in an envelope, 10 cents for that. Put a cardboard liner in it, 10 cents for that. Put the address label on it, 10 cents for that. It would add up, but it was still affordable over the course of whatever it was, 200, 300 copies. And then at that point it became, no, whatever we would have to charge you to do that, you wouldn't be able to afford, and we would never build a customer base, which is why there were no freebies and no subscriptions with Glamour Plus. So it became a process of what happened was when Carol West quit, instead of as had been the situation where Monique Captain trained Carol West, instead of getting Carol West to train her replacement secretary, we'll get her to train us as to everything that she does. So she did that. And at that point it was, okay, now she's all done, and we just divvied up the workload, and that automatically saved us whatever it was, like $400 a week.
That's good.
Yeah, because, she was only making like $250 or $270, which isn't, like great money for a secretary. But we also had to pay the government, $125, withholding tax, which is where that starts to add up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay. And she said when she was leaving, you can give me a call if you have any questions about anything, and I hope you will call, because it took me years to learn how to do all of this stuff, and we never had to give her a phone call. It's like, no, this is all really basic stuff. And then when Gerhardt was leaving, and hadn't told me that he was leaving, but was definitely planning to, he made up a red binder of all of the things that he was doing. So if anything ever happened to Gerhardt, I would have this whole, it was a good 50, 60 pages of this is Gerhardt's job. This is all of the stuff that doesn't involve drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when Gerhardt did leave, it's like, okay, you've got the red binder. Here's all of the stuff in there. And, showing the invoicing and sending stuff. Here's, you're going to fax the mailing labels to record distribution. And here's how you calculate the weight of each book. And then add those weights together if two of those books are going someplace. And it's like, I didn't say anything, but I'm going, no, Julian Recker has finagled you into doing her job. So at that point, it was, when Gerhardt was gone and I was taking over, I just phoned Julie and I said, Julie, I'm just going to fax you, here's the list of the books that are going out. These are the single orders. These are the ones that are going out in quantity. And here's the addresses. And you do all of these mailing labels and everything else. And she goes, well, that's not how we've been doing it. And I went, all right, I understand that, but that's how we're going to do it now. And long pause, and she goes, is Gerhardt there? No, Gerhardt done gone. I'm the one in charge now, and this is how we're doing it. So essentially, although Mike, you're making it sound like Dave Sim, valiant, stalwart, doing everything without any complaint or whatever. At each stage, it was always, okay, what's the easiest way to do this, and how much of this can we offload to other people? And that's really the situation that I'm still in. I'm always watching for that. Mm-hmm. The opportunity to save some money and streamline the operation. As Thoreau said, simplify.
I understand, Dave. We're almost near 60 minutes. I can if I'm going to save this to Anchor, and then we can if you want to take a break, I can wait, or if you want to keep on going, we can keep on going after that. Does that sound okay?
That's fine.
Okay. This won't take nothing but a moment. I'm going to stop recording for now and then save this.